No announcements that I'm aware of. Anybody have any announcements they need to do? Okay, in the packet was a petition that was started by Bill Harrington. I think I talked to him a month or two ago about this, and he said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, if you really want to put some teeth into something, you might want to get your neighbors to sign on to something, so at least it's not just you complaining, and you might get, if people agree with you." He did get a petition together. Mel and I've talked about it. Our feeling is at this point that it really is a policing issue, at least initially. Did you ever talk to the chief yet? He was gone.
Well, I talked to the chief before he went on vacation. That's one of the, Bill is not expected to come here because George did meet with Bill before George went on vacation. And when I talked to Bill, explained to him that, the city council really wouldn't take any action, and it would be more beneficial to have George here during any more lengthy discussion. What I talked to George about is the thought of maybe even including the explorers in actually getting some data for the city council to get some information on the speed in that area, so that you're working with data as opposed to people claiming that people are driving fast or whatever. So anyway, I mentioned that to George. George is on vacation, and I think that that certainly should be done before the city council discusses this in September.
Yeah, I'll just go through some of the litany of the things that we have gone through on that street. And you can get, for getting that data, the Regional Planning Commission has the counters that also clock speed, and they also record when it happens. So, and we did put one of those counters on that street for a week or two.
A week, I think it was.
And it recorded all of the speeds, when they were, and all of that stuff. So I think they only have 4 of them, so it's sometimes hard to get them. But they're free, and they'll come and install them and on any street. So that's one way to get the data. The other thing that happened the last time all of this came up was the police stationed a car there with radar, and so if they weren't picking them up, they were recording the speeds. And so that was another way to get the data as far as the speeds were concerned. Now at that time, on both the police and the counter showed that the speeds weren't as fast as people thought and weren't as often as they thought. But that was then, and the other things that we ended up doing there, we had speed bumps for a while. Now granted, they were the kind of speed bumps that really belong in a parking lot rather than the street. They weren't speed tables, and speed tables are a lot different, much more expensive.
Right. People complain because of stopping and going and banging.
Right.
Yeah.
We had special signs made up for the neighborhood that says, kids in the neighborhood, please drive slow, or something along those lines. We had a whole bunch of them along the neighborhood, did that.
Are they still there? They're gone.
Public Works may still have a few hanging around. We had for a while there, we had a few that were stolen, but we did put those out. And what other? Ziggy, do you remember? Because you were on during this time.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of stuff.
We tried several things. The speed bumps, everyone thought it'd be great, and the noise, stepping on the gas, slowing up, was waking people up at night. It was one of them.
Jonathan?
Just curious if Renee, if there's a sense, or whether it makes any difference, if the problem is people going out of town or people coming into town, or both?
Both. Oh, at that time it was both. I don't know what it is now.
I'm wondering if we should look into one of those solar powered, your speed is whatever. They seem to really, there were quite a few of them around.
They got one in Heinsberg.
Yeah. If the price has gone down on them, I mean, at the time we were going through this before, we looked into those, but they were so expensive at that time that we just didn't do it. But I think the price has gone down on those. That's a possibility. The only comment I would make about the what's on the petition. One thing that I will not vote for is putting a stop sign at King Street. Remember that stop signs are not speed control devices.
That's what Mel said this week, we were talking about, he was adamant about that as well, so.
But other than that, I'm open to.
Tell that to Middlebury.
They are speed control devices, and also to turn an intersection into a 3-year intersection based on the code, if you will. It has to meet the 70-30 threshold, and therefore, the amount of traffic coming off from King Street would have to represent at least 30% of the total traffic of Maple Street and King Street combined. And I'm sure that it's really more like 90-10, and therefore, it doesn't meet that threshold, and it could only be used, as Rennie says, for that. So I'm certainly in the same court with Rennie in that regard. It's just an absolute contradiction of the world.
code. It's the
Well, you got any
uniform
comments or
sign code.
questions, or?
I just
What do you
find that, on my side street, I know traffic going down through there is probably only going 15 miles an hour, but it seems like it's quite fast. So 25 or 30, even if they're traveling 30, they're still not gonna get pulled over by any police officer. So, I really don't see that much traffic. I could see way out on Maple Street where they're coming out of Waltham and in. Yes, they're constantly speeding through there, but,
That's what I was curious.
Lynn, how about you? Do you have any comments or questions?
Well, I
We'll come
hate
to
to
the
use
table.
our police by the hour to sit there and just monitor the speed. I think that's not great use of money. If we could get the counter and I would be for that. I would be against speed bumps. I'd be against stop sign. And I agree, I do not think that the speed is as high as people think it is. It's a narrow street, and even if you're going 15 or 20 and you're meeting somebody, it seems like it's faster. But I don't think it is. I use that street all the time. I never see people speeding by.
Joe, any more comments?
No.
Ziggy, any comments?
No,
No?
that's,
Randy,
everyone's
go ahead.
covered it.
I revisited this situation when Rennie was city manager. With Bill, I actually went over and sat on his porch for a while. And there was maybe a few cars that might have been zipping through there, but again, perception is a whole thing. It's a narrow street, so everything funnels in quick. So I'm not really for speed bumps. I'm not for speed tables. And I'm not for the stop sign at the end of King Street. The only time that I could see King Street would be a problem is when St. Peter's Church lets out on Saturday evening and Sunday morning or Sunday before noon. When they let out, that's when you have a lot of traffic going through that intersection.
Sounds like we have pretty good consensus here in terms of what might happen. It sounds like what we ought to do is do some research, whether it's through whether it's through the counter or whether it's through with some volunteer efforts or something, and then we have in the next 2 or 3 meetings, we can compile that and talk about it, and if some of those folks want to come in, we can spend more time at it, but I think does that make sense?
Yeah, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. It is posted correctly. I checked to make sure that the sign was still there. It is still there. 25 miles an hour is the absolute lowest speed limit that a municipality can set for any of its highways. So, as Bill mentioned from the outset, barring some of these other ideas of improper stop signs or speed bumps, it comes down to an enforcement and education process. And sometimes a ticket is a real good educator.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
what's
Mel, so you'll get on that and
Yep.
talk to the chief and Randy.
I have one more question. Can they write tickets at 5 over?
I could write it at 1 over if they want to, but it's not the best idea, because we certainly want people, there was some criticism when the state police were talking, or somebody was talking about issuing tickets for 1 mile an hour over, and it really, the worst thing you want operators to do is to be spending 90% of their time looking at their speedometer. We really want them looking at the road. So that's what really makes that a very unsafe thing if the police start ticketing people for being 1 mile an hour. But, you know, in that area, you know, it's like in the central business district, it's 25. You know, you really want people driving 25, you know, pedestrians, this type of thing. So there should be very little tolerance, Randy, in any of our 25-mile-an-hour zones, really.
Okay, good. Minutes. Has everyone read the minutes of August 13th, the special meeting for the bond issue? We also need an approval of July 23rd, I believe, don't we?
Yes. I make a motion.
Second?
Is that a motion for both sets of minutes?
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
Joe?
Comment under committee reports, Recreation Committee has finished their design, it's really a preliminary design, it's not a finished design.
Oh, okay.
It's just a conceptual design,
On the 23rd,
correct.
okay. Motion made by Ziggy, correction by Joe, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. No citizens' comments. Business, Mel, you want to bring us up to speed on the police station?
Well, Joan has, there was one item that got missed at your special meeting, which needs signatures from the city council. It's called a declaration of official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness. Just to explain what that is, you know, obviously the voters approved a $1.45 million bond for a project that's in the vicinity of $1.55 million, and we have spent some money. We have certainly spent some money prior to our so-called closing with the Merchants Bank. And I know, Ziggy, I know it was half joked about using our money, let's use their money first before we use our money, and we certainly you know, can do that, but the way the rule works is that you cannot get reimbursement for any expenses for a project that were more than 60 days prior to the bond. I think that's what that resolution is saying, Joan. And we have spent some money. Fortunately, we didn't have the closing more than 60 days. We closed on the property in July, so the $240,000 purchase of the property is fine, but there was two expenses that occurred outside of the 60 days. One being the Phase 1 environmental study that cost $1,500, and the first bill that went to Bread Loaf, and I think it was about $16,000, something like that. So those monies will have to come out of the water tower fund. And then, but anything, once this is signed and submitted to the Merchants Bank, anything beyond those two expenses, we can seek reimbursement.
So is that going around, or?
Which is a motion to adopt. I need to sign it.
Oh, okay, okay. Do we have a motion to adopt
Said
it?
motion.
Randy, motion, second?
Second.
Lowell, thank you. Any discussion? Apparently it's a piece of legalese that we weren't aware of. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, none. Great. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Joan. Comprehensive City Ordinance Review Schedule. This is just on here, there's a letter in your packet from Karen Flarucci about the pet ordinance. I guess she read or saw us on TV saying we're going to be reviewing these. I just wanted to make you aware of this. I think it's something that we will discuss during the normal course of reviewing that ordinance, discuss what we want to do. If she'd like to come attend a meeting, I will certainly invite her. You know, I think if people realize we're looking at this, we'll probably get a few more, you know, comments and opinions, which is going to be a good thing. So it's really just in here for your review, and you know, we'll probably start getting on this stuff in September, October, and start looking at some of these ordinances. So, one taxpayer's opinion.
I'll give you mine.
There'll be plenty of time for that. Okay, Mel, you got a few things here to bring us up to speed on. There's not much in the way of a decision items tonight, but Mel wants to update us on a lot of things that have occurred in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Sure. Budget report, obviously, we're only about a month and a half into the new year, and I can tell you that tomorrow is when I will be doing the adjustments. Like, for instance, in your budget, it shows 2 months' worth of electricity when it really should be only showing one, and so there's a whole page of payables that need to be charged to last year's budget, charged to payables, and it automatically deducts it from the current budget. So the next budget you see in September will really give you two things. One, it will give you a pre-audit fund balance for FY13, and it'll give you a much truer picture of really where we're at in our current budget. So that's on the work item for tomorrow. Police station project.
I have one quick question for you on the budget.
Yep.
I was looking at this, we're over in terms of legal fees, I'm assuming that's all for the police station?
I'm gonna check that. 'Cause
Okay.
that doesn't sound right to me at all.
It's 172%.
You know what I think I may have done? I will check that, because if a portion of, I think that may very well be police station
Okay,
legal fees.
Okay.
I
But
thought I
I'll
saw in the
double check
warrants,
that.
$1,300 for Wilmette.
There was a title insurance bill that was paid, but I will check the detail on that bill,
Okay.
because that doesn't make sense to me.
the other area I was just curious about was under public works, like parking lines,
Yep.
parks maintenance, stump removal, paving and sidewalks. There's been no expenditure there, I know they've done parking lines, they've probably done some parks I guess I'm not sure how that plays out. I thought there would've been some expenses, but not yet, I mean,
Well,
not in
parking
July.
lines is paint,
Yeah.
and the paint probably got purchased in June.
Okay.
All right, and so although there was parking lines laid down, the supplies for that
Okay,
were
okay.
paid. Parks maintenance, yeah.
We've done no paving and no sidewalks yet, so, okay.
No.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
No,
Okay,
no, but I'll certainly double check that legal, that doesn't sound right to me.
okay.
That's a misfire, gotta be.
All right, police station.
So, police station, we did complete I mentioned this at last meeting, that we did get a clean asbestos sampling results for the building, and they've sent me the forms that need to go to EPA, and it's just coincidental, Christopher Kinnick, who is the lead and asbestos manager for the health department, he had a place to look at in Vergennes today and stopped in. I've talked to him many times on the phone, I'd never met him, I had a chance to meet him today, and we talked a little bit about the place he was going to, but we got off that topic and talked about the police station. And it's real simple about this form going to EPA and going to the health department, and we'll tear that building down right after Labor Day. So that's all squared away. The bids are all in, but I have no information to give you that because Breadloaf hasn't done their analysis or anything. So I have nothing for you at this point. It might, Bill, warrant, I know our next regular meeting is not until September 17th, but the next step is really to gather up all of these bids and see where we're at. And, I'm certainly not, I'm hoping the best, but I want the city, certainly going into this thing, the council has allocated $100,000 from the water tower fund. We now know, and by the way, there was $10,000 in the budget for interest, because at that time I was told that we had an option of once a year interest payments by the Merchants Bank. And not to throw them under the bus, there's a law that says that you have to pay interest at least twice a year. And so that $27,000 interest payment that we're going to be faced with in March is not with a $10,000 line item in a budget, it's with a zero line item in a budget. So there's some water tower money. So the point is that as soon as we get this information from Breadloaf, we certainly want to proceed, and the go-to fund is the water tower fund, but we want to make sure that we aren't moving forward a project that's beyond that fund as well. So, like I say, we may have to have a special meeting.
Do you think
to
it's
go over those
wise
numbers.
if Chris and you and Rennie look at all that first.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and everything is
And we'll leave it
great,
with Rennie if he wants to
if everything's
gather.
great, fine. If not, we can have a special meeting to discuss any issues
Okay.
that might arise.
Yep, okay.
Because I think you guys can certainly look at that and
Okay.
see where we're looking at in terms of the total cost.
Yeah.
And if
Okay.
you feel we need a meeting, either one of you, we can call a meeting and.
Yeah,
sit
and
and
really, if
discuss it.
it's, to me, the council has only put $100,000, all right? And the council, in my opinion, the city council did not approve $127,000 the other night. They approved, yeah, we know it, we'll use that 27, so that leaves 73. So, if there's more than $73,000, I think we'll be back in touch.
Okay. Yeah,
with-
that's good.
With the board,
Okay.
okay? So that's the status of that. Solar project, I signed that agreement the day before I went on vacation. I have not met with Chad, and I was on vacation. He and I did not contact one another last week when I was back, and now he's on vacation. But they did have their site people here to determine what trees need to be removed and all that. So it is moving along, and but the details will not. We won't be going over the actual final design until Chad gets back from vacation. So that'll be next week. But anyway, all of the the agreement is all in place. We're all squared away in that regard. The I think I mentioned to the board that the certificate of public good has been issued by the Public Service Board. So everything is in place for this project, at least from the permits and the agreements. Train station sewer extension project. I put this up on the bulletin board. It's actually something that I've been working on a little bit over the last couple of months, and Rennie, I don't know if this is a project that you inherited like me, but
Wasn't it Randy that did this start off with?
No, the permission to put in a force main to the train station was.
predated you.
No, I thought it was done when I was around, right? I thought.
Well, the only reason why I bring this up is that,
If there's any kind of a mistake, it's not my fault.
well, okay, well, anyway, obviously, we sometimes joke about a project that is, almost 13 years in the making, and so, people can't remember what the deal was, okay? But anyway, the point is that there was, and I can't remember if I ever have had Joan do the research for me to read the minutes, but
There is a resolution.
so there was a resolution by the city council approving the extension of sewer to the train station in Ferrisburg. Now, subsequent to that, there was a charter change whereby any sewer extension agreement is to be approved by the voters, and so. And I believe that's the order of events, and obviously, I don't, that wasn't totally contemplated, but the city council at the time made that commitment, and certainly there was a verbal agreement, although not in the form of a resolution, but not a so-called formal agreement. I have totally gone on the assumption that at least that approval was granted. Right? And we're going to move forward with this. Now, one of the things when I came back and looked at the design of this force main, I really felt that they missed one of the alternatives, and because there was a number of alternative designs, but the design that they decided on was a force main that ran from the train station all the way to in front of Amy's Salon, okay, something like that, using directional boring, and then it went across the road and a thrust block and all this type of thing. And I'm not an engineer, but I really like pump stations at the end of our sewer mains. I just like the flushing, no pun intended, that one of the problems with sewer lines at their start is the self-cleaning effect of sewer lines doesn't work without flow. And so one of the reasons why we don't have problems with New Haven Road is because the Eagles Club has a pump station, and that comes on and it pumps into that gravity line and keeps it clean. So really, pump stations at the end are a good thing. And so when I found out that they were sending this force main all the way down to Amy's Salon, I thought, man, did anybody think about this manhole over here in the cornfield? And I couldn't really get their attention for quite some time until they found out what it really cost to do that much of a force main and crossing Route 22A down in front of Amy's. And so I offered up the idea of right now, the sewer main runs behind Deneker Chevrolet and behind Dan Flaster's, behind Precision Print and Copy, behind Dan Flaster's, to a manhole behind Vergennes Auto, and the Vergennes Auto line goes into that manhole. You know, I've always felt that that's really where the connection point should be, is to bring that force main into that line. So we still have a lot of money, if you will, in this enhancement grant, and Wayne Davis has allowed me to carry the ball on the design of this project, which would be to replace the sewer main from Deneker Chevrolet, replace and extend the main, the sewer main, from Deneker Chevrolet, wrapping totally around the police station to a manhole. And that manhole is where the train station would pump into. So there'd be a manhole at the street, all right? So it saves all of that distance of pipe and everything, and to me, gets the pump station tied into the system at the proper
So
location.
they're gonna go under the tracks.
They will directional bore
Okay.
under the tracks with a 2-inch line to get to that location. So we designed this project and this portion of the project, and there was 6 bidders. The low bidder is Josh Masterson. Second low bidder is Roger Parker. Third, I think, is Champlain Construction. There was three other bidders above them. We're still doing our reference checking, if you will, on the projects, but we'll select a bidder here pretty soon. And the other thing that this project does is it actually will shorten the sewer line from the police station to the main.
Good.
And it always bothered me a little bit, like, you're gonna build this police station and not have a brand new sewer line. You know, that doesn't make any sense to me. Let's put a new line in so you have all new. So I
Is
wanted
that
to.
gonna be done this fall?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
would be
okay.
done right off.
Good,
So
okay.
I wanted everybody to know about that, and because at some point, there still needs to be a sewer extension agreement with the city. And to
Right.
cover all of, whether or not the agreement covers the cost or our enhancement grant covers the cost, all of this work when I say work, all of the expenses, I should say, that the city has experienced with this project has always been reimbursed to us. There's been no issue with that, and this is more of a construction project as opposed to an engineering project. And the
Well,
other,
it sounds like we're gonna save them money, so.
maybe, we might save them some money, but we haven't determined the connection fee yet, Bill.
So is this going behind the Velco? or-
No.
So
No,
we're going to be.
right, wrapping around the police station, so that the line stays out in the field, kind of runs parallel with the police station back line, and when it pretty much gets to the back corner of the police station lot, it takes a right-hand turn. There'll be a manhole there.
Yeah.
Takes a right-hand turn, going perpendicular towards Route 22A, and that's where the manhole. So from that manhole that I just described is gravity to a manhole at the back right-hand corner, and then gravity towards the storage building of Miller's. And we've incorporated in both of the back manholes an 8-inch stub for part of the easement negotiation that I did with the folks at Carrera was to make sure that those manholes were designed and constructed with an 8-inch stub, if you will, to take care of any future development occur. And that 8-inch line will be laid at absolute minimum slope so that, to hopefully avoid as much as possible any pump stations that might have to occur from that lot.
If you have questions about the detail of the original design, Brent Rakowski
Yeah.
is the engineer. He was working for a different company at the time,
Yep.
who I think
Frank
was
Henry.
involved in it.
Yeah, and I finally convinced them. They always, when I brought this up, they had a permit in their hand ready. And obviously, when you have a permit in your hand, it costs money to get that permit amended. But when they found out what it was really gonna cost them to get all of the archaeological clearance. See, this project is just a city project. We just go out and we get a sewer extension permit from the state and do the project. It's no big deal. They were gonna have to get an archaeological clearance, all this type of thing, and I think that they finally concluded that an amendment is not all that complicated. When you compare it to the tens of thousands of dollars at stake in going this alternative route.
And there should be a resolution or some action by the council, because the council is the one that permitted it to, before they even started to do the designs, I recall.
Yeah, it's in the.
And the other thing that is just a little bit related, I included in your packet an email from Spooner. I think her name is Spooner.
Yeah, for the
right?
station itself.
Because one of the things that needs to be incorporated in this sewer extension agreement is in essence, a restriction of use. And to
Right, that's
me,
what I was gonna bring up.
the restrictions that are placed on this train station, to me, is exactly the type of restrictions that ought to be incorporated in a sewer extension agreement to the state of Vermont for that property. So that it's not as though.
So we're on the same page there, it
Yeah,
seems like.
and we're not
Good.
extending sewer to,
Right.
whatever, we're extending to that building for this purpose, for these known uses.
And I think
2-inch
if you look
main.
up the action that the council takes, I think it restricts it to only that use.
Well, if I was on it, I'm sure it did, but.
Good, okay.
So what is coming at some point, there will be a form where, we gotta keep moving, because I don't wanna do this after the police station.
Right.
I wanna do it,
During
during the construction, but I just wanna let everybody know that the sewer extension agreement is gonna be on your plate at some point, for.
Are we invited to this tour on Friday then?
I'm gonna say yes, yeah, it's really an open house to the way I interpret it.
So apparently they're limiting, because it says good and services may not be sold on premises because it's state property and public funds.
Yeah.
So it must be whatever they have that they're gonna be renting to them, if there'll be some.
Vergennes
offices.
Animal Hospital.
Well, I don't know that they can do that.
Services.
Yeah, they have goods and
Yeah.
services.
It
so-
has to be nonprofit, because we looked into it for an office, so it has to be a nonprofit.
Like the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Yeah,
Downtown
Okay.
revitalization office.
In Ferrisburg.
Like that put a burr under their saddle.
Why not?
Okay,
So anyway, that's that.
all right.
Vermont
What's-
Gas, Bill, you can talk about, I put that on there just about tomorrow, really.
Yeah, there's a meeting tomorrow at the Legion for interested parties to ask questions from Vermont Gas. It's the Legion, August 21st from 5 to 8 p.m. It's like an open house. It sounds like it's kind of casual. They'll answer questions and just talk to people about concerns. While we're on this, I will mention to the City Council that I received an email probably a week ago, a little more than that, from a citizen in Vergennes, wanting to know what Vergennes was doing to fight the gas line. And I wrote back and I said, well, you're the first person that's ever asked. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, most people around here seem to support it. And there have been We've had Vermont Gas here, we've had discussions at the council table even before I was mayor, it was back in last November, I believe. So this person was a little upset and wanted to know if they could, if the townspeople could vote on it, and I said, well, no, it's not really an issue that's voted on. I said, you could have a referendum and it's not binding, and frankly, given the way their schedule is, it's probably too late. And so, I knew we had a short meeting tonight. This gentleman may want to attend a meeting and just ask some questions. I have yet to respond to his latest email. I've been doing some research and so on. So, there are people out there that are against it, but I think it seems like everybody that I've spoken to in the last 9 months has been basically in favor of it.
Now that
So,
everybody has a chance to.
yeah.
to get
Joe?
on it.
Oh, just curious about the nature of why he was opposed to it.
Carbon footprint, fracking, had nothing to do with economic development, it had nothing to do with cost savings, had nothing to do with safety. It was really just the big picture,
Yep.
and that it was not a good thing to use gas or oil.
Okay.
And I said, I respect that, that's your opinion. So this I'm not sure where this is going, but, we'll see what happens in the next meeting.
Because there's been articles in the paper on it.
Well, I said, where were you like a year ago when this was like discussed, when you could have actually had a referendum in November or March to talk about this? And he said he just found out about it because they were surveying his street. And I said, well, okay, if you're that concerned, and you're obligated to kind of look out for your own interests, so.
He doesn't have to join.
That's what he said. He told me that. He says, I don't have to sign up. I said, no, you don't. So that's your prerogative. So. Okay, Mel, delinquent property taxes.
Yeah, I was gonna print out some report, I just wanted to let folks know where we're at, and obviously, we're getting close to August 30th or August 31st because of this 60-day rule, and we've got a ways to go. Last August 30th, we were at $25,508, and obviously, you don't want that number to be any higher because it takes money right out of your fund balance. And I didn't run a report today, Joan, but I think the last time that we ran a report, we were certainly over $40,000.
Just barely.
Okay, so we have a ways to go. Letters were put out to folks, talking about August 15th and talking about August 30th and about the city taking additional action if not. So, but again, there is a ways to go, and so I'll report that in September. I can tell you, I think we're going to be close. Relative to the fund balance, using I think we ended up landing at $135,000, and if we're going to lose ground because of delinquent taxes, and if the accounts payable are at or above the $15,000 that I had originally estimated, I think it's going to be close. I can tell you that in the fire department, we estimated that we would end the year at about $30,000 in a fund balance, and we're going to be a little less than that. I think it's going to be in the $27,000 to $28,000. I met with Jim Brewer yesterday and let him know that relative to the $25,000 allocation for building improvements or whatever, or any repair work to the fire station, roof structure, doors, or anything like that, we need to be a little careful here, because we may not have that. We may not have a full $25,000. So he's been made aware of that. So I'll get you good solid information here. The auditors come, Joan, right on 20. I know Joan's really looking forward to this. Is they it does turn us upside down a little bit.
A little bit.
On, I think it's 28th, 29th, 30th, or something like.
27th,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, but we're in good shape. Really. As far as the books go, they always allocate 3 days. They only came here 2 last year.
Yeah.
We think that we're in as good shape or better.
I don't think I mentioned this at the last special meeting, but I met with the auditor one day.
That's right.
You were on vacation, and
so you got the real picture.
And Joan introduced me, and she
You
goes,
just met Penny, though.
can I talk to you? And I said, sure, I'll come back this afternoon. We talked for about 45 minutes, and, about various things. But at the end, she said, Vergennes is in great shape. there are a few things, you know, we would recommend, which we've heard about in the auditor's reports, but she said that, you know, she was very happy with our books, so kudos to the
Yeah.
staff
Yeah.
at City Hall.
Yes, Teresa and
Teresa.
Penny.
Just so Bill, so that, you know, when I wanna, when Bill says, you know, there's some things that they wanna change, let me tell you what some of the things, how ridiculous some of those things might be. In a perfect world, they would want at least 2 people, if not 3 people, going to the post office. You know, whether they would hold hands, go down to the post office, bring the mail back, and then they would sit at a table, and one would open, and one would record, and one would stamp. I mean, that's the kind of
And one would
internal-
videotape.
Yeah, you know, that's the kind of internal controls that an auditor, you know, would like. And you know, we've got a lot, we got a lot of internal controls, but you're never gonna meet that, or if you wanna meet that standard, then, you know, you'll have an administration budget that'll go from 350,000 to 650,000 in a hurry. So my guess is that's one of them.
That
That's
was
one
one
of
of
the
them,
areas.
And the other one that she said, you said, the only thing, we always think of a worst case scenario. And she said, what would you do if anything happened to Mel Hawley? And I said, now that is a scary thought.
Resign.
Well, Randy,
I said, we do have Rennie.
just give the keys back to Randy. No problem.
I said, that's a good point, we'll be thinking about that one, but,
It's your turn next.
any other topics, Mel, or you?
Yeah, I think that's, I know that there was some other, I know one other, I just wanna let you know about. Every so often you hear me make reference to a 1272 order. Rennie knows what that means. 1272 order is an order issued by the Agency of Natural Resources relative, in our instance, about sewer overflows, all right? And, you know, we still do, even though there's been literally millions of dollars put into our sewer system, both treatment and lines, we still do have a lot of infiltration, and in certain events, we still have overflows. Now that the state has spent some money on Northlands, their system is considerably tighter. You know, there's no overflows that are occurring from that. I don't know that we've ever had an overflow.
That was a big problem.
It was a big problem. So and as a matter of fact, for the first time since we changed our ordinance relative to how we build Northlands, usage in
August.
July, we're not through August yet, usage in July going through the sewer pump station was less than what the water district meter readings used. And that obviously means that in the past, it was always the other way, because when it rained, that rain went into the system. And so obviously there wasn't a lot of rain in July, but anyway, that's the first time that's the first time since I've been back that's occurred. So that's that's really a much better thing. McDonough Drive, on the other hand, you know, that takes care of all the rest of town. On occasion, when you have a flash storm, we have some overflows, and so I have a draft 1272 order about some things that we need to do, and at this point, they're really focusing on having measuring capabilities is where they're at. This 1272 order is not about, you know, a deadline that we have to, you know, totally eliminate any and all overflows that occur regardless of weather conditions by some particular date. They're not there, but that day will come someday. They are making us, as a part of this order, install metering capability at McDonough Drive in the event of an overflow. Because part of the problem is when you go into an overflow, you don't know if it's 100,000 gallons or 200,000 gallons. We really don't know. We just know that the pumps aren't keeping up with the flow. So that's something that we have to put in place by whatever the date says in this 1272 order. So I can tell you these 1272 orders, you do them. The last one we had, they just keep getting amended. They don't go away. They send you a 1272 order. They make you do a study. You do a report. You submit it. They give you another 1272 order. You do a study. You do some things. they send you another 12, they just don't go away. It's just the way it is. So anyway, some of the money that will be coming out of the sewer capital fund, out of Fund 8, will be for those kinds of things. And it isn't the last time you'll hear about 1272 orders. So.
Randy?
Actually, I've got a question, we're on other topics, about the email that Joan sent out to us about a wedding for maybe a potential wedding for 150 to 200 guests
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
on the green. Okay, it's not gonna happen?
But that'll be part of our ordinance review for the green.
But
Yeah.
we still need to fix the
Right, we
price.
gotta
Yeah, we
fix
need to
it.
look at, if anybody has it, we need to be able to tell them what
Because
to do.
there's a lot of ramifications with that,
Yeah.
taking up parking, how
Tons.
long it's gonna
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already,
And that's what we all need to look at
Yeah.
and
Thank goodness we don't have to
clarify
deal with it
the
tonight, but it.
But no,
yeah,
I just, it was in my email,
Yeah,
so I,
yeah, no,
policy.
I was surprised
panicking
too.
This morning, oh God, I gotta answer this lady and look at this. ordinance.
they found another spot.
Thank God.
I have one thing that
Not
Mel and I have been working on. We, I don't know, 6 months ago, we talked to Sue Furland about the park out on School Street.
Cemetery.
The cemeteries,
Yeah.
the park, God, well,
Kind
the
of a
park for dead people, I'm sorry. It's been given to the city, we received $28,000, I think,
Yeah.
along with it.
Yeah.
We talked about trying to upgrade it to a certain extent, the city's now maintaining it. I saw Sue, I think it was Memorial Day, she was trying to get bids for, some fencing options, which I haven't seen yet. We talked about the sign, and we talked about the wording for the sign. And I talked to Rebecca Duffy, who's kind of a designer, architect, and said, we're trying to come up with a design for the sign. We want it to be pretty nice, something that looks good for a 200-year-old cemetery. And she offered to do some drawings for free for the city. And Mel and I gave her some text. Apparently, it wasn't the perfect text. She had this nice design. It was not very big. It was like 3 feet by 2 feet. It had like a little weeping willow on the top, kind of like Sue had that. This would be hand painted. I think what I gave her, it said Old Vergennes Burying Ground. And then we looked up the minutes, and the word old should not be there. So we took the word old out. And then we had a discussion about 1790 to 1970, the dates. And Mel and I said, boy, I'm not sure, it would sound better if it was like just circa 1790, because that's when most of the people were buried there. But anyway, she's ready to finalize this, and then we can get the wooden part built, and we can get the sign put up sometime in the next month or two. I just want to get a final approval as to what the wording is going to say.
so actually somebody was buried here in 1970?
Well,
Yeah, the latest,
yeah.
it was Willard Bristol's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that who it was?
Mrs.
Whalen
Whalen
Bristol.
Whale and Bristol, okay.
She's like by far the last person there, so
Didn't we covered this
we did.
before Mayor Daniels got
Yes.
done, and we came up with the wording.
Right. The wording.
The wording is-
The name of the cemetery, Bill and I are not suggesting that we fry that fish again. Vergennes Burying Ground, that's set.
That had history to it, I mean, yes.
Yeah, Sue
That's
gave us
what
the whole
the-
history, and I think we agreed that.
The thing that we wanna just get clarified and in the form of a recommendation, because we just think that it would just looks better and makes a little more sense, as opposed to having it say 1790 to 1979, which sounds like somebody lived how long? It should say circa 1790.
Or no date at all, either one, probably.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
right.
I like having a date.
Ah,
My opinion, I like the date.
You
I
like
like
one
the,
date.
I like the circa
Okay,
1790.
and that's kind of what I
so
thought
is
too.
that
but
to identify that was the first
It's kind of
cemetery in
when it was
Vergennes?
established.
That's when it was
That's correct.
established.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just, before she finalized it, we didn't want to be blamed if someone didn't like it, so that's what we wanted authorization on.
And if the sign really, Rebecca did a nice job, it's got that tree on the top, the sign has some shape to it, it's nice. So
How
we
big is
wanna
it?
just get,
It's not real big. It's about 3 feet by,
3.5
it's about 1.5 feet high and has a little round on the top, and it just sits on 2 4x4 wooden posts.
Yeah.
Very plain, but I think it'll look nice and big enough so people can see it. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll get that going, and hopefully, I'm not sure when the fence is gonna happen, and it depends on the prices, but when we find that out, we'll bring it to the board too. That's it. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I do have a
Joe?
couple things. First of all, I heard a story, and I want to relate to the council and anybody else listening, about one of our police officers who happened to be down in the falls. One of the guests approached him and asked where he could buy some charcoal or something for his boat. Police officer went into town, picked up what he needed, brought it back, and the people were very appreciative. I don't know who it was, but I just wanted to bring that up. Thought it was a really nice gesture.
Nice service.
They don't do that for any of us, do they?
Yeah.
In the case of wine, it'll be fine.
Yeah, it wasn't wine, it was charcoal.
That's a story.
But the people were very appreciative, they were very nice, and I thought it was a nice thing. The Recreation Committee had a meeting, regularly scheduled meeting on August 9th. Basically, we were sort of developing a plan to move ahead with the toddler park. We kind of, at this meeting, decided that the other thing that's on our plate is the rail trail. We kind of decided to sort of put that aside until we get this a little more momentum on this toddler park. A couple things came out of that meeting. Immediately after that, I attended the meeting of the partnership. We're looking at a tentative date in September, and I do have the date. Mel's got the date. The school hasn't officially approved the date, so I don't know if you want me to give the date yet, but we don't have full approval yet. David Raphael will be available at that meeting, Mel, to talk with the community.
Yep.
Doug Todd, one of the members of our committee, scanned David Raphael's plans and forwarded them to me, and I'll get them to you to put on the website.
Don't get them to me, because I don't do that.
Oh, to you, okay.
Yeah.
The partnership, I forwarded them to Tara. They're gonna have a multimedia capability at their booth at Vergennes Day, so they'll be displaying those
Good,
plans
okay.
on their website. So, I guess that's basically where we are.
Good. Yeah, I attended part of that meeting, and I think if we can get the design finalized and get a little bit of site work done, that'd be
Right.
nice to be able to build it
Sure.
in the spring of 2014 and have it available.
Sure, so what came out of this meeting was that we sort of approved the conceptual design. We'd like to have this community meeting and get approval of the DRB and so forth. And then do the appropriate site work in the fall, and then through the winter, work on finalizing the design and budget so that we can do some fundraising and so forth to have a complete plan and budget available in the spring when we can get started on it in the spring.
Anybody else?
I'll give you the Opera House.
Oh, yeah.
They are so busy, I don't know when they have time to do anything, but it's been very well covered in the newspapers. But they really have a great committee going, and they have done everything they promised they're gonna do. They've done everything from clean the toilets to clean everything in the Opera House, plus the fundraiser is tonight for the Opera House. So I think they're on the right track, they've got the right people going forward, and I think we're gonna be in a good place a year from now.
Good. Great. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second? Second, Lowell? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7 of 7.
Wow, great.